and welcome again to another Sunday evening conversation about political engagement in the Hmong community. I'm one of your co-hosts, Pak Hu Hang, and I'm joined this evening by my other co-host, Terry Tao, who is the chair of the Senate District 67 DFL, as well as state representative for House District 67B, Jay Shong. So hey guys, hey Terry, hey Jay. Now, as many of you already know, we started this show because in 2020, there was a lot of misinformation that was intentionally being spewed in the Hmong community. And Jay and Terry and I think that one of the best ways that you can combat that type of political manipulation is to have a robust and resilient political consciousness. And so we're really interested in delving into issues and really, informing people of what's really happening so they get a sense of what is really happening and how to affect their own personal lives. Now, many of our viewers will also know that this year, due to redistricting, everybody is up for re-election, right? The entire state legislature, all the constitutional officers, those are like folks like the governor, the lieutenant governor, as well as many other positions. And recently, Mike Freeman, who is the Hennepin County Attorney, he announced that he's not going to run for re-election. So in addition to the state legislature and the governor, et cetera, this November, folks in Hennepin County will also be electing a new county attorney. And as of today, there are 6 candidates who have announced that they're running. And tonight, we're going to have a bunch of them on our show to talk more about what that role is to them and why they're running. Jay, so before we begin talking to the candidates, we're going to be actually going in and inviting one of our co-hosts, former co-hosts, Winona Yang, to come and talk to us exactly what is the role of a county attorney. So Winona, are you on the line? Can you share with us, like, what does a county attorney do and why is that role important?
Hi everyone, it's Winona. It's nice to be back and see all of you again. So I'm here to talk a little about a Hennepin County Attorney, okay? So Xuvxwm, Minnesota Nona, it's a Tualu County, Moob, Ramsey County, Hennepin County, Washington County. Cái more itu thơ cứ đi cho ở tu county attorney, okay? Cái nó rất là county attorney nó chỉ hay sao ở bên sinh nhỏ cho ilu county đó yo là bomb ba là sai chỉ tụi này có yo kia yo chủ tao cái tiền nữa đây đó cứ đi cho ta chỉ yo chủ kia ilu campaign cái thông kia ilu county đó Hennepin County yo ilu dễ rõ ở mua li bao châu chi ilu rõ 45 cities inside Hennepin County, Silly, Minneapolis, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center, Minnetonka, Wayzata. One dollar city, okay, chỉ những người lúc county or lot chap lo cho hậu sinh Minnesota no, chỉ những một xã hay tiệt ilu county mọi tí tu county attorney nó chỉ cho hơi lượng đó ít Hennepin đó từ Hennepin County attorney những người cho hơi lượng lo chap lo thế chính chính hành nó dọ. Chỉ cho nên nói chỉ từ Hennepin County attorney cho hơi lượng chỉ những lo cơ nó nữ những một hơi lượng nó đâu thế thì phản đâu vậy nữ cho hơi lượng lo cho bạn nó chỉ do ý thầu trong phủ nhớ cho Hennepin County có châu sản đó bị sản là chỉ có một hai xã xuống rồi và mình cả hữu civil suit nó chỉ lợi dụng đâu là sản lan đó từ Hennepin County attorney thì chú ý vì từ Hennepin County đó có từ thơ cứ đi cho này ạ giờ từ county attorney có tàu ba cháu cho cái trái lý cho có một anh thì chú ý là ba cho trong phủ chỉ ta lên đó thầu trong phủ đó ilu rõ xử lý Minneapolis là Brooklyn Center nhớ cho hậu county đó có chỉ nhớ có tê có là từ county attorney có từ cái lý cho là sai sửa tê đón đó chính chính đó theo thầu tư lợi dụng tàu ba thầu tư một cái mình nói chuyện là chỉ từ county attorney cái do từ cái cho ở là thì thấy lúc county đó sao mà vậy chỉ ta nên đó là chuyện cái on là chỉ thầu biết xem ở thầu nè xử lý thầu ít thôi nên ở thầu cho trái lo nè nhớ trong cái felony giờ lúc nó thầu yêu tàu felony thầu yêu mà felony là chỉ yêu tàu một nhóm của mà giờ để là chỉ yêu để là hay để yêu thầu là chỉ yêu tàu một nhóm của giờ ít cho cái thầu lo nè giờ kể tụ nó Hennepin County ở do tụ nên ở sở kiến the lúc county nó hay xả là số yếu tại khi mà hay tiền là số yếu nó chỉ chia tiền là yếu lần chia cái cho xí đó yếu xứ là yếu để tiền mà là yếu tụ nên ở yếu lần chia cái chân chân cho tụ nên đỡ thế chia cái chân chân cho lúc rõ thế nào yếu chỉ ta nên đỡ nó kiện cái bé thôi ít thôi bé sang và chẳng chỉ tao muốn có gì xong và mình cả hữu juvenile thầu tu ít tu mình nhận lên đó tao ở cái chảo lỡ yếu tao một hai xã do tu Hennepin County Attorney thia chỉ ta lên đó nó cái năng lực lao thầu tu County Attorney nó nếu cho họ lựa cái yếu là ba chỉ nên thia xử lý thầu em nên thầu nhiệt chi xin đâu cái yếu tao một hai yếu tao muốn chia tao đó là or child support là chỉ để rồi mỗi thứ mình nhỏ or nhiệt cái gì sai chỉ tao là chỉ lu cho lý cho cái này cái để rồi là yếu tao một hai lóng đó tại lúc trẻ hai lóng yếu tao là hai số tu county attorney nó thia cái nó như mất xã nó cái như cho họ lựa cái những lo công việc nó cái vì hai tia như cho họ lựa đã有lo lên nó cái tu county attorney cho hai tia bây giờ tu bây sinh ở bây giờ cho bây sinh ở như một bọn bà lo sai như lo nếu như muốn ít ba tu đi cho họ assistant county attorney rồi nó有lo người tây ba như cái kia cái tao nữa tây đến nó bị tây đến nó những lo công việc thế đầu công việc chỉ ta lên đó là lỡ chuyện yếu tao một số thì cái cho lý cho một số thì nó tên lý cho chỉ yếu ba tí nên tây lý cho ở tây cái trái ở bây giờ một tây chỉ mua là nè chọn từ theo lý chỉ cho ở chọn từ tiếp cho từ chỉ ba tí nên này ạ cái là tao muốn chú ý là tao ba tí đó là cái bị lý nó này thiên bỏ cho tí nên ở chỗ kia là ở Hennepin County cho lúc xong đây nó cái bây thiết xã mua cho là thảm nhân chi bé cho ở nhớ Hennepin County thiết tao một bọn bà nó bé mà lên một sai từ ở nên ở học bé thọ bé không mua tiếng mình rất chỉ là thiết lý học cho ở这八bé thiết介绍到了
저 완전한 제 내주도 보고 인도는 또 심하고 사하카로 좋을 뻔했다 완전하고 야 이도 시프칸다 저도 제간다 다 글리커 메트로 해먼 스쿨 오브 로 하츠탄에 그 뜻간다 다오 글리커 for disclosure 완전한 또 고야니고 오늘 반조 이도 그 말로 또 플라노 하도 신우노니 또 노야 또 뭐니 cái cho cái giờ học bé to Brooklyn Mosu. So I want to thank you, Winona, for coming back on our show. For those who may not know, Winona used to host a show with us a couple years ago. She is an adjunct professor and a graduate of Mitchell Hamlin School of Law. In full disclosure, Winona's spouse is working for one of the candidates on the show tonight, but her insights are wholly her own and independent of any relations. And so thank you so much, Winona, for coming back to share with us about the importance of this role in Hennepin County.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And it's a county attorney. Their roles are huge and endless. So hopefully I was able to capture the gist of it, and I'll pass it on to you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Winona. If you could just highlight too, and I appreciated you explaining it in Hmong first, but can you then explain high level too in English, or maybe some of our younger viewers who, about the role of the county attorney's office?
Yep. So a county attorney is basically like the top attorney for a county, or like the top prosecutor. So they're going to help the county. And like I said, Hennepin County encompasses like 45 cities. So it's the biggest county in Minnesota. So basically whoever is the county attorney, they're basically like it's huge. It's a huge job. It covers a lot of cities. There's a lot of stuff that they have to do. So one of the things that they have to do is they have to give civil advice. So whenever the county is maybe facing a civil lawsuit or needs like information on legal policies and things like that, they're going to go to the county attorney and his assistant county attorneys for that legal insight. If there is individuals who are facing felony charges, they're probably going to be prosecuted by the county attorney or his assistant county attorneys. And when I say prosecuted, they're not here to punish you. They're here to really give justice to the individual who committed a crime and the county, and try to find a balance in between that. I think many times, especially people in our home community, we are scared of prosecutors, and we have a different idea. Like we're scared of them. We think that they're here to punish and send us to jail and prison, but they're really there to give justice, whatever way that the community that elects that county attorney thinks justice looks like. They also help with juvenile prosecution. And a juvenile is just an individual who's not 18 yet and has committed like a crime. And then, they're going to be prosecuted, of course, by the county attorney and their team. And county attorneys help with victims. They also help in family disputes, like where there's child support or paternity issues, or just a whole variety of issues. And they also help with developing laws. Like they do research on the laws that are effective, that are not effective, and they really try to help victims. It's just so much. And because the work is so wide, they have a team of assistant county attorneys to help them with all of that. So it's not a one-man show, but they lead all of it. And so it's really important for that the community selects the one that represents them and their values, because this person's going to be really heading the justice system.
All right. Thank you very much. We're super happy to have you back, and congratulations too. So, all right. Thanks, Winona. All right. Now we've heard a little bit of the context in both English and Hmong about what the bias, my East Metro bias, what the county attorney does, whatever county they're in across the state. But tonight we're really excited to be joined by the majority of candidates who are running for particularly Hennepin County attorney tonight. And we've decided to focus on Hennepin County because it is the largest county in the state, as we heard Winona explain. But it's also really interesting because we have it's an open race right now with the retirement of the previous Hennepin County attorney. And so I'm really excited to have the candidates join us tonight. They talk a little bit about, share with us a little bit about who they are, and we'll have a couple questions for them later too. And so in this part of the evening, we do apologize, we're not going to be interpreting the session. And so, but we will, should anyone have any questions, drop a note, and we're happy to kind of do a high level summary too in Hmong. But yes, again, welcome on behalf of Hmong American Weekly. And first we'll start off, we're going in by old school style, alphabetical order by last name. So which brings me to Mary Moriarty, who is a former Hennepin County Chief Public Defender. And the question for all the candidates, this first question is just, we heard just right quickly from Winona about the role of what the county attorney does. But in your opinion, what is the role of the county attorney, and what experiences would you bring to this position?
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me to be here. I think Winona did a good job of describing the aspirational view of the county attorney. But the important thing to realize is it is actually that position, the most powerful position in the system, because they decide who to charge, who not to charge, whether to send them to diversion, whether to ask for bail. So essentially, they decide who comes in the system and what happens to them in the system. And those decisions are very subjective. And so that's one of the reasons it's critically important. The prosecutor's role is to do the right thing. The prosecutor actually does not represent an individual or victims or police. They represent everyone in Hennepin County. And so it is important for the prosecutor to look at public safety and justice. Those two things can go hand in hand. And I think it's critically important that we go away from what we've been doing for decades, which is simply focus on punishment, which is about sending people to prison for the longest period of time, and focusing on reforms, which include rehabilitation. The reason I think I'm most qualified for this job is I was a Hennepin County public defender for 31 years. I was trying criminal cases for over 20 years, so I have extensive experience trying cases. I gave commentary on the Chauvin trial for MSNBC and BBC and other channels, so I know criminal law really well. I teach criminal law and trial practice to students at Harvard and the University of Minnesota Law School. I was also chair of the Behavioral Health Committee in Hennepin County for 6 years. So I looked at alternatives for mental health issues and substance abuse disorder. Hennepin County is very large. It has over 8,000 employees. It also has its own culture, and it's very difficult to figure out that culture. And I know it inside and out because I've spent my career there. I know who the people are that want reform and the people who are there who do not want reform. I was also chief public defender, as you mentioned, for 6 years, and I had the opportunity to lead the second largest public law firm in the state of over 120 lawyers. In 2019, the National Center for State Courts described our office as one of the most effective and best in the country. Management is a critical part of this role because going in there, there's part of it is changing the culture in the office. And so management experience is absolutely critical. I also am very invested in racial equity and reform. So for all of those reasons, I think I'm the most qualified person for this position. And I also think it is the most critical position in this system. And given everything that's happened in our community, it's even more important right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. The next person I have to answer this question is, sorry, we're doing a couple of different screws here. Paul Oster will join us a little bit later. He had another conflict, but he'll join us. Is Saraswati Singh.
Thank you so much, Terry, and to Paku and Representative Zhang, and also to Winona. I come from a family of immigrants, Indian immigrants, and my mom, she doesn't speak English very well. In fact, where she works at a nursing home. They don't believe that her daughter is a lawyer. So I just thank you to Winona for translating, because just because you don't speak English well doesn't mean you're dumb. It's really important to vote, and you have power, and my mom votes every year, and so should you. So thank you to everyone that's watching, and please go vote, regardless of who it is. So what is the job to be Hennepin County Attorney? It's to be the top prosecutor for Minneapolis and the surrounding area. And I'm a prosecutor. I handle murder, sexual assault, domestic assault cases, car thefts, and everything in between. I work for John Choi in Ramsey County. He's the first Korean American county attorney in the whole country. And he's been doing things that I would like to do. About 30% of our criminal division are people of color, including Hmong. Fu Tao, if you don't know him, you should get to know him. He is one of your community. He's up and coming. He's winning awards. And we need more folks like that. Why am I running? It's because I have the experience to do the job. It's difficult. You know, Mary mentioned some of the parts of that job Winona did. It's big. And you need someone who has not only done the job, but has the life experiences that are necessary to bring to the job. We're in a new world. In fact, it hasn't changed much, but we're becoming more cognizant of just how important justice is and what it can look like. I handle murder cases, sexual assault, domestic assault cases. Most of my victims are women and people of color, and many are refugees, immigrants, and Hmong. They're scared to talk to us. What I think Terry mentioned that they're scared. Part of your job as a prosecutor is to build that trust and let them know that you're there not to represent the defendant. You're not there to represent a client, even the victim. Your job isn't to throw the book at the defendant, every single defendant, regardless of what case it is. No, even though that's what typical prosecution has looked like. Your job is to do the right thing. It's to do justice. That's what's in the rules. And when I'm Hennepin County Attorney, I'm going to do exactly like that, making sure Hmong Americans are represented within the prosecution office, because my platform is racial equity, police accountability, and public safety, and all three all at the same time. And the only way you're going to do that is if you have representation. Thank you.
Simon Trautmann.
Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting this forum and for Faculty member Winona Yang, I just think that was a superb description of the role of the county attorney. And when you walk into the county attorney's office and you take a left, it goes to the criminal division. And when you walk into the county attorney's office and you take a right, it goes to the civil division. And there are dozens of attorneys in both departments. And we need justice, not just in the criminal context, but we need justice in the civil context. The experiences into this office are as well in the city of Richfield, and we've led that city through a significant generational change with a change in leadership both in the council and at the staff and the bureaucratic level. And we see very clearly in this moment now that we need more than policy change in offices like Hennepin County. With no-knock warrants, we saw that policy change or addressed by the city. We had no-knock warrant policy changes at the state level, but without actually reckoning with the problems in the trauma and the broken relationships, and with not actually repairing those systems and removing people that don't belong within this bureaucracy, we see the same results. So I'm running because I have that experience of bringing that bureaucratic change. I also have the experience of building a law firm and managing teams of lawyers in litigation practice, in civil litigation practice, in administrative law practice, and doing that primarily with first-generation immigrants and people of color. It's one of the incredible honors of my life to serve my clients, not only when they're building power and wealth, and not only on their worst days when they've made mistakes and they're being held accountable by the system, but also in the context of civil rights. We recently won a civil rights case. We're really proud of that. We have our county convention that's coming up, and for the first time in state history, we have folks that are on probation that we used to say could not participate in party politics. And now, because of our advocacy, they are able to participate. And I'm just thrilled to be able to do that and fight for folks. And that's why I'm running for county attorney, to bring that passion and competency to bring systemic change to the county.
Thank you very much, Simon. And my apologies, I realized I gave Mary's introduction, but Saraswati Singh mentioned she's the Assistant Ramsey County Attorney, and then Simon Trautmann is over at Richfield City Council, correct? And so, and last but not least tonight, and we'll have Paul Oster introduce himself afterwards when he's able to join us, is Ryan Winkler, who is currently right now Minnesota House Majority Leader. Ryan, we know you're calling in, and so if you could tell us the first question, in your opinion, what's the role of the county attorney and what experiences would you bring to this position?
Yeah, thank you to Paku, Jay, and to Terry for hosting this conversation. Winona, thank you for a great explanation of the role of the office. And yes, I am run into some travel difficulties and am stuck in an airport. So that's why I'm joining you off camera and with audio only, but I appreciate you taking the time. I didn't want to miss this. The role of the county attorney is to do justice, as the other candidates have described. It is to do so while leading some of the best lawyers in the state, both civil lawyers and prosecutors, and to help do justice under very difficult circumstances. In recent years, the role of prosecutor, especially in a large metro area like Hennepin County, has become a high-pressure situation. The challenges faced by an elected official forced to make decisions about charging police officers, about charging victims, about the level of accountability that we need for police, while we simultaneously work with police to address rising crime, makes this a very challenging and uniquely demanding position. And so what I bring to the role is experience doing just that. In addition to my 3 years as House Majority Leader and 15 years as a state legislator, my leadership time has been through some of the most difficult periods in state history, through the COVID pandemic, through the murder of George Floyd, subsequent killings of Dante Wright and Amir Locke, through the civil unrest that followed George Floyd's killing, and a rising crime which has made distrust of law enforcement and distrust of the system increase in all parts of our communities. We've had to deal with that at the state level. But I think most importantly, we've seen what happens at the local level, at the county level, and at the city level when leadership has not risen to the challenge. And that's what I hope to bring to this office: an ability to withstand tough pressure, to work with a diverse arrangement of jurisdictions from the Minneapolis Police Department all the way out to Orono and Maple Plain, from communities that are very not diverse to communities that are very diverse with lots of different perspectives. We need a person in this office who can represent all parts of the county in doing justice, who can make hard decisions, who can figure out how to bridge gaps between systems, how to bring people together to identify our common problems, figure out what the solutions to those common problems are, and figure out how to implement those solutions together. That's my experience through 15 years at the state legislature. And I'm running for this office because I think it's an opportunity to create a direct impact on an issue that is critically important for the future of our community, critically important for the future of our state. Minnesota is not is much more diverse than it once was. Our challenges in working together are greater than they once were. We have an opportunity to really set an example for how a community can come through deep divisions based on race and figure out a path forward together as a united community. And the only way to do that successfully, in my opinion, is to spend time in the community, to have a diverse campaign team and a diverse office, to be engaged and listening and following through on those conversations. The level of engagement that we've seen from the county attorney's office has not been adequate to address the level of community distrust of our criminal justice system. And job one of the next county attorney has to be to create a sense from all communities in the county that their interests, their goals, their dreams are represented in the justice that the county attorney's office is working on. And that means doing work differently, but it means showing up differently, listening and following through. And that's the kind of leadership I want to bring to the office.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So since the pandemic, right, we've seen skyrocketing cases of harassment and violence against Asian Americans, partly due to the rhetoric of some elected officials. In the Twin Cities in particular, we've seen, elderly Hmong citizens, young people of Asian American descent being harassed, even violenced, being assaulted. And so I'm wondering for you all who are running for county attorney, if you were elected, how would you combat anti-Asian hate? And Ryan, let's start with you and then work backwards.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's a very important question. In certain ways, Asian communities are overlooked when it comes to systemic racism. The level of racism directed towards Asian leaders, I think in many ways is not as closely tracked as it is for other groups. And I think part of that is because we have not done a good enough job in the majority white community of standing up and calling out examples of racist behavior and hate directed towards Asian Americans. So I think first and foremost, being a voice is important. I think that as the county attorney, being in the community, in the Asian American community, whether that's the Hmong community, the Chinese community, it doesn't matter. Being present and listening and showing up and hearing the problems and challenges the community faces, and then looking for ways to partner together and solve problems together is one way that the county attorney can play a role. We do have the possibility of pursuing hate crimes charges in certain cases if that's warranted, but really that is at the most extreme level. I think far better is to set an example and to help create a culture and help address community needs, which will help to create a more equitable state, of course, but also to demonstrate clearly that Asian Americans are no more deserving of hatred or discriminatory treatment than anybody else is. And we cannot let that be silent in the shadows.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. And what about you, Simon? What would you do to combat anti-Asian hate?
Well, for just a little bit about my personal experience background, I had the privilege of living in Asia for a number of years. I actually lived in Wuhan, which is a city that people didn't know about until relatively recently. And I lived in the neighborhood that both had the wet market and the bio lab. So wherever it came from is right where I had the privilege of spending a lot of time. And And my mother is a woman of color and who recently passed to COVID. And I share that just to say this, to say that hate crimes are real, they're real crimes, and they need to really be prosecuted and taken seriously. And I take it as seriously as I take the life of my mother, as I take the life of my wife, who's a Latina woman, as I take the lives and deep lifelong friendships that I've forged in Asia. And it's a priority. And it's a priority that begins by naming it and begins by listening to it. Many of my dearest friends are first-generation immigrants, Asian and East African, and particularly in the last 5 years, the number of personal stories that I've heard as a lawyer, as a trusted friend, have gone through the roof. And what we did in an organization that I helped to establish, the Minnesota Justice Coalition, is we recently hosted a forum with dozens of legislators that were able to attend, and we lifted up the voice of young students who were feeling and repeatedly experiencing profoundly racist remarks and systems and behaviors. And so we started by not just calling it out, but by making a voice and platform available for people to hear. And we on a miserably cold night, we got 150 people out and legislatures out, and we were able to lift those voices up. And so that's just an indication of just how seriously and how deeply I take these issues, and how aggressively I would prosecute them.
Great. Thank you, Simon. And what about you, Saraswati? What would you do to combat anti-Asian hate?
First of all, thank you, Paku, for asking that question. You know, it feels like early on in the pandemic, people started talking about Asian hate, especially after those mass murders in Atlanta, and then people forgot about them. And I think some people think it's stopped, that the violence has stopped. No, the media stopped covering it, but the cases keep mounting. So thank you for asking that question. I mentioned earlier that my 3 main issues of equal value, we have to work on them together, are public safety, police accountability, and racial equity. Under public safety is my anti-Asian hate platform, because that is violence. The hate is violence. It's transferring into physical transgressions against the Asian community. And for me, it's personal. I'm brown, and people often mistake me and my family for being Black or Muslim. But my friend from junior high, we would walk to school together since I was 13. She lived 2 doors down from me. She had a baby a couple years ago during the first year of the pandemic. And her mom was coming over to visit. And she was taking the bus, and she was attacked. Like, in this community that we'd lived for 20 years. When I heard about it, I was really horrified and scared and worried. And my friend wouldn't let her mom take the bus anymore. She was like, I'm gonna pay for Lyft, and you're gonna come over, and then that's how you're gonna see your grandson. Things like that have been happening. And my friend is a lawyer, by the way. So she called the FBI hotline because she knew it's important to track these things, that government officials won't care unless there's data to back it up, that it's important for Asian voices to lift up and speak up, because it's not bad to do that. It's the only way that you're gonna fix the problem. This is so important to me. I'm also elected, Governor Walz appointed me to the Council of Asian Pacific Minnesotans. I represent the over 50,000 Indian Americans. I work with Ma Zhang, who represents the Hmong community here in Minnesota. On our council, which have leaders of our Minnesota community, during the pandemic, we were harassed. Not the folks that look like me, no, our Chinese, our Hmong, our Karen, because people that were ignorant, they didn't take the time to figure out, oh, are they Chinese? Not that it mattered. They were being harassed. Someone used their car to try to block one of our members. And these types of things are happening in Minnesota, where we're supposed to be nice. Why does this matter? I'm running to be Hennepin County Attorney, to be the top prosecutor in Minneapolis and the surrounding area. It's important to know what the laws are, and it's also important to know what the experiences are of your community. Only then will you be able to match them up and do justice. We have things like aggravated sentencing, and we can do that. We can choose to do that. Now, I've talked with some victims, including people that are Hmong, and they don't want the extra sentence. You know what they want? They want a letter of apology. Those are things that we can do as prosecutors, because sometimes that's most powerful of all.
Yeah,
So thank you, Paku, for asking that question.
thank you so much too. And I hope that your friend's mom is doing well or doing better. Thank you. So what about you, Mary? You know, obviously this is a really important issue in our community and in the larger, you know, Hennepin County community. If elected, how would you combat anti-Asian hate?
It's actually a huge committee or issue nationally. There have been over 10,300 hate crimes reported against Asian Americans. I was doing some research, and Manhattan County Attorney, or DA as they call it, actually has a hate crimes task force. And in the last 10 years, they've reported more Asian hate crimes than ever before. So it's clear that hate crimes are out of control. I think it's really important for accountability. And I talked before about punishment and how we've done a really good job of punishing people. I'm a huge fan of restorative practices, especially if that's something that people who've been harmed want. And I think restorative practices are a good idea. I think there are all kinds of ways you can be accountable, but I think education is huge. And I would partner with schools and other entities in our community to talk about education. In particular, you know, we did some cultural competence training in our office when I was chief public defender. That is something I would do at the county attorney's office. And I think for people to know, particularly that the Hmong people are actually here because they helped the United States in a war and they could no longer stay where they were, that many people would prefer to be back in their own country, but they're here because they were persecuted, is a huge issue. I'll also say that I have represented people for 31 years, Hmong, Asian Pacific, Black, African. I have listened to them and their stories for decades, but I'm a white woman. And what I would do is use my privilege, which I have, to make sure that the office understands and is culturally competent, that we are educating the community about why we take these types of crimes seriously, and that we do have accountability. I have a history of standing up and saying and speaking out against racial disparities and race. That has cost me quite dearly. And so I would point to my past as to what I would do in the future. I take these very seriously, and I would do that as Hennepin County Attorney.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. We're really excited to have one of the other candidates who was able to just join us now. So Paul Straub, who used to be a member of the Minneapolis City Council, come join us. We're going to give him a little bit of time to have him introduce himself, talk a little bit about what the role of the county attorney would mean for him, and then to answer this question too, about if you were elected a county attorney, how would you combat anti-Asian hate? Welcome, Paul.
Thank you so much, and I apologize juggling a bit with the schedule tonight, but I'm thrilled to be with all of you, and thank you for having this program. I'm really excited to be a part of the Hennepin County Attorney's race. I come to the race with what I think is a unique combination of experience, having served in leadership positions on the Minneapolis City Council. Frankly, since my time away from the City Council, I have really had two jobs in some ways. I've been an assistant county attorney as a prosecutor, but frankly, I've been an advocate. I've been an advocate for transparency. I've been an advocate for accountability on everything from police discipline to football stadiums to reform in our campaign financing. I've been an advocate for independent politics that are not partisan, and that's the background I bring. The role of the county attorney's office, to me, you're a problem solver. That's simple. We don't have enough problem solvers now in public office. We have folks that spend too much time tweeting and being on social media and getting headlines. There's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of compromise. I think what we have to stress is we need to hold people accountable. There are people that are dangerous that need to be locked up. I think that needs to be said, but we also need reform. We need to make sure that we treat people fairly, that we have procedural justice. The role of the county attorney really is to ensure procedural justice and to make sure the rights of everybody in the county are fulfilled and the people of the county are safe. As it relates to hate crimes against Asians, Americans, it's horrific. It's sad the way that it has, as Mary pointed out, really exploded over the last couple of years. I was actually the first campaign I got involved in as a former elected official was Blang Yang's campaign in Minneapolis when he ran for the city council seat on the north side. And it was frankly really inspiring to see the Hmong community and get to know the Hmong community on the north side as a part of that campaign. I remember going over to the Science Museum, or the History Museum, I'm sorry, and they had an exhibit on Hmong Americans that fought alongside us in the Vietnam War. So I think there's a lot of things involved. I don't want to take up too much time, and I appreciate your allowing me to speak kind of late in the game. We need empathy more than anything else. And the reason we don't have empathy, and frankly, this includes empathy sometimes for law enforcement, but it certainly includes empathy for people of color. It certainly includes empathy for Asian Americans, is we don't interact or know people, and then we don't have empathy. One of the things I want to do, and I've been the co-chair of our diversity and inclusion committee, and I push this there, I want to find a way that if you're in the Hennepin County Attorney's office, I want to do all I can. I'd like to figure out a way to provide some FTO for it, but I want to provide it so you can actually be in the community. Where you're getting involved in people that have a different background than yourself, whether it's Hmong Americans, African Americans, people living in poverty. Get yourself involved in the community. You don't just come to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office to do your cases. You need to be a part of the community. I want to make sure that when we have hate crimes, they get charged as felonies, frankly, because quite often what's happening now is a lot of felonies aren't getting charged as felonies. They're getting kicked down to the city attorney's office, serious assaults. So that protects not just Hmong Americans, but everyone. I tend to look at the hate crime that's about as premeditated as you can be. People get into fights all the time. I'm not excusing people for getting into fights and disagreements when emotions get hot. But when you're attacking someone merely because of their ancestry or the color of their skin, that's as premeditated as it can be. And that deserves a harsher penalty because of that. So I would try to build empathy. I would aggressively prosecute those types of offenses, and also be involved as much as we possibly can as in terms of some of the publicity that needs to be done to point out when these issues happen, that everyone's aware of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. For our final question of the night, I'm wondering, in both Derek Chauvin and Kimberly Potter's trials, Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman chose not to lead the prosecution. My question to all of you is, do you think this was the right decision, and how would you have handled those cases? And so let's start with Paul, then go down the line.
Oh gosh, okay. Well, I actually would applaud the way the Derek Chauvin case was handled. I don't think it was properly charged at the front end. I thought it was far more serious than the charges that were initially brought. I had some misgivings about the case being taken away from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, but at the end of the day, I think that the result was the right one. Derek Chauvin maliciously and malevolently murdered George Floyd, and he deserved the penalty he got. And that was incredibly important that result be what it was. I will tell you, though, that I think that Kimberly Potter was overcharged. I believe that. The mistake she made was a horrific mistake, but it was a mistake. And I frankly think that charging her with the first-degree manslaughter was inappropriate. And when you really think about it, this is where we got to get the politics out of the charging. You know, you had a situation where some of the best prosecutors in the state of Minnesota with Washington County looked at that case. They made a decision based on not just on how the law fit the elements, but what is the just thing to do. And because certain people, you know, it doesn't matter how strongly they felt, doesn't matter what kind of ideology they have, but there was a protest that took place and pressure was put on, and then I believe a charge that should not have been filed was charged against her. You could say she was convicted, but I did not think that was justice. I think she should have been convicted of the second degree charge and not the first. I said that she should have gone to prison, but I actually think the judge used, whether I would have been at that exact amount of time, I'm not sure. But comparing Derek Chauvin to Kim Potter, that's where we have to start. We have to have empathy, and we have to understand nuance. There's no comparison between those two circumstances other than the fact they resulted in a tragic death. So I would bring that sense of balance, that sense of justice to the job. I struggle with where we go from here, whether we have the Attorney General handle these cases or whether we have them, or whether perhaps we have a more transparent grand jury process. I would look at all those options, and I'm still thinking through that, because somehow we have to take the politics out of the decision making. And that is the biggest challenge, I think, in these cases.
Thanks, Paul. Mary?
Yeah, so let me talk about Potter first. The reason that case went to the Washington County Attorney is that the current county attorney in Hennepin agreed to or entered into an agreement with other county attorneys to send cases like that. For instance, the Dalal Eid case was sent to the Dakota County Attorney. The Winston Smith case was sent to the Crow Wing County Attorney in Brainerd. No one elected either of them, nothing against them, to make the decisions in those cases. I would not enter into such an agreement with other county attorneys. As the elected Hennepin County Attorney, I believe it is my job to make those decisions. And just to talk about Potter for a bit, I think comparing Potter to Chauvin is the wrong comparison. I think we ought to compare Potter to Mohammed Noor. And Mohammed Noor, in case people forget, was a Somali officer who was charged very aggressively by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office with intentional second-degree murder. He was acquitted of that. He was actually convicted of a lesser crime than Potter and got a greater sentence. I think what happened with Potter, as I reflect on it, and one thing that leads to people's anger is that I have sat next to clients on murder cases probably about 13 times. I've tried a lot of murder cases. I have never heard a judge shed tears for any of my clients. I have never heard a judge ask the family of the deceased to put themselves in the shoes of my client. Not to say that I wish that wouldn't have happened and that my clients should have gotten empathy, and I do believe we need empathy, but there are clearly two different systems of justice, one for white people and one for people of color. In terms of Chauvin, that was not a decision that Mike Freeman made. That was made for him. And it was made because people in Hennepin County did not trust him to make the right decision. And it went to the Attorney General's office, who did a marvelous job of prosecuting that case. I think the unfortunate thing, he had 10 or 12 volunteers because he simply does not have the staffing. He has asked for the staffing from the legislature and he has not gotten those resources. So I think it's really hard to ask the Attorney General to take on all of those cases because he simply doesn't have the resources. So ultimately, I would hope if I become Hennepin County Attorney that I would be able to build trust in the community. You do that by having relationships and being in the community, which I have been as Chief Public Defender. You do that by being transparent about your policies and your decisions. And you be that about, you're accountable and you're in the community listening. And my hope is to build trust with communities so that when I make decisions in those types of cases, they may agree or disagree, but I hope that they will respect those decisions.
Thank you, Mary. Saraswati?
Thank you so much, Representative. I'm a prosecutor, just like Paul. We get cases submitted to us, and sometimes we send them back because more investigation needs to be done. And then we decide whether to charge the case, and if so, what charges they should be. I can tell you, you can talk to 5 prosecutors, and you can sometimes get 5 different answers. It's not because we're bad, it's just we have different viewpoints. And I'll tell you right now with the Chauvin case, when it was first charged, reading the probable cause statement, it was very defensive of Chauvin. It felt like it was written by a defense attorney, and it's okay to be a defense attorney. It's an important job, but that's not your job when you're a prosecutor. You don't make excuses for the officer. Later on, the defense attorney will do that. I think Chauvin was properly charged and convicted, and I know Mike Freeman and Keith Ellison has said the same. Mike Freeman called Keith Ellison for help. Why? Because Freeman was out of his depth. The community was upset. That press conference Mike Freeman gave, it seemed like he wasn't understanding the gravity of the situation. The fact that there was this damning piece of evidence recorded by a teenager, and that maybe him and his office wouldn't do the right thing. It was a trust issue. I think Mike Freeman did the right thing by calling Keith Ellison and saying, I need someone who the public trusts more, and to make sure that this process appears fair and transparent, and that we bring all the important people here. And just so you know, that Chauvin prosecution, it was done jointly, both with the Minnesota Attorney General's office and the Hennepin County Attorney's office. I know the prosecutors from both offices that worked on those cases. Second, with Kim Potter, I think she was appropriately charged. I know reasonable minds can disagree, but she was charged for different things than Chauvin, and rightfully so. And there was a lot of litigation. You went in front of a judge. This evidence was presented in front of a jury in detail. And just so you know, a mistake can be a crime. There are other crimes where a mistake is a crime, but normally you don't hear about them because they aren't police officers. They're usually regular people that end up getting charged and convicted. I think the Kim Potter case was properly charged. And I think I bring something, this is going to be my last time to talk. I bring something that the other candidates don't. The other candidates have many wonderful qualities, and I respect each of them. But I'm a prosecutor at the Ramsey County Attorney's Office. I worked at the Minnesota Attorney General's office, working throughout the state. I've worked for 2 federal judges, including a Hennepin County District Court judge, like Judge Shu, too. And I have my life experiences. We've barely touched into them. All of that is really important for the top prosecutor in Hennepin County, especially at this time. And when I get elected, I'll be the first woman of color in the position. And I know I look young. I'm 37. I'm the same age as Amy Klobuchar when she first ran and won for Hennepin County Attorney. So I hope all of you join me, and to the Hmong community, empower yourselves. Go vote this primary. Hopefully the 6 of us are all on the ballot, but make sure you vote. Your voice matters, and make sure that we see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you so much. With regards to, the way I understood the question, there's a question about were they charged correctly, and was the decision to have other prosecutors prosecute the case the right decision? And as was mentioned, it was perhaps less of a decision when it came to Derek Chauvin. And in my campaign, you'll hear me talk over and over again about reckoning and repair. And what I mean by reckoning is we have to take an honest account of what's broken, and then repair, as opposed to policy reform, is creating systems that repair those harms. And when it comes to Derek Chauvin, I'm exceedingly grateful and humbled to have the support and the endorsement of George Perry Floyd's family here in Minnesota. And I take that trust so seriously. And the relationship that the county attorney has with community matters immensely, because when you make the decisions, and you make to make a decision as a lawyer or a policymaker, you will make unpopular decisions. And so having the trust of the community when they agree with you, when they disagree with you, is absolutely critical. When it comes to making charging decisions, it's really important that we look beyond the force of will of any one prosecutor, because there's an inherent conflict of interest when you charge people that you rely on to do your job. And we have to frankly acknowledge the conflict of interest that is inherent when the prosecutor who brings charges against law enforcement that they rely on to bring them the evidence to make their case. And so it's not a matter of weak will to say, it might be fruitful, so you can be more active in your leadership to bring in other parties. Now, I don't know that the swapping with other prosecutors is the best answer, but I would be very open to collaborating and creating a group of prosecutors that would include the Attorney General and the Department of Justice. And it looks like I have 10 seconds. So I just want to thank everybody on this panel for Paku and Terry and Representative Xiong. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. And like other candidates have said, this is an incredibly important race where we can raise our expectations for justice and fairness in criminal justice and procedural justice. And I hope you show up and vote in August.
And last but not least, the Majority Leader, Ryan Winkler.
All right, well, thank you so much for this conversation. The question is, when police officers are going to be charged with a crime, how should those charges be handled? And the critical question is trust. Simon just, I think, rightly raised the issue of conflict of interest. People who work with you day in and day out will have a harder time being objective in how they make decisions about charging. What I have proposed is an independent police accountability unit within the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, not just for charging, but to really focus on police accountability up and down the line, not just for a final charging decision. The issue, however, when it comes to charging, is that any decision that a prosecutor makes who is an elected official will be questioned as to whether or not it was made for political reasons. That's just part of our politics today, and we can't change it. What I would propose is a process for referring cases to the Attorney General's office, if possible, or to another county attorney under a procedure and process that is published ahead of time, is vetted with the community so that people have a sense of fairness. And when the difficult time comes to make a referral and make a decision on charging, that process is clear and can be easily followed and is transparent so the public can see what's happening and why. It's too late to start making those decisions after the fact. And it could be that it's the Attorney General. It could be that we're using county attorneys in the metro area. It could be a panel of county attorneys through the County Attorneys Association. It could be some combination of those three options. But to create a procedure ahead of time that people can follow and track so that when the decisions are coming and the cases are hard and emotions are high, we can point to a set process to follow as a way of creating trust in the moment. I don't think it will be enough to simply expect people to trust the individual elected to the office to always make the right decision. That isn't how our system works. There are going to be too many dissenting voices, too much emotion, way too many differences of opinion. And that's why I think having a clearly independent process for charging is important. And I think that's really where the Chauvin trial and charging process and the Potter process broke down, is because people could not exactly understand who was making a decision and why, and it appeared to be ad hoc and political.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. I learned a tremendous amount tonight. I want to thank all 6 folks who showed up tonight. I did also want to mention that Martha Holton-Dimick is another candidate who could not be here tonight the last minute. Former retired Hennepin County District Judge couldn't join us. But thank you very much to Mary Moriarty, Paul Ostrow, Saraswati Singh, Simon Trautmann, and Ryan Winkler for coming tonight. I think you bring us you talked about, there were some really clear themes around justice, what the justice system really means, how do we ensure justice happens, and accountability. And a lot of it, I heard themes tonight around rebuilding and reestablishing trust. And there's no time like right now, particularly Hennepin County, where we need this more than ever, and particularly across the state of Minnesota, if not the nation. So I'm really grateful for you to join us tonight. We're educated a little bit about what the County Attorney's Office does. We hope that folks tonight viewing walk away with a better sense of what this office includes, including the many different tensions that I appreciate the candidates here who raised a couple issues tonight. I also hope through tonight's discussion you learned a little bit more about who the candidates were, heard a little bit about their stories, and hopefully that they're coming out and reaching to hear stories from folks in the community as well. Our next show will be on March 20th, and so we will be announcing the topic soon in a couple of weeks here too. Check out our Facebook page. But on behalf of the hosts, thank you, Paku and Jay, my co-pilots on this adventure. We are grateful to have everybody join us tonight so we can begin another week as we close another week of doing political education in the Hmong American community. Ocho, fishing you. Thank you.
What's up?